Okay, this is an example from chapter 16, which is more about tests and intervals, and this is specifically to talk about type 1 and type 2 error. So we are on page 11, and this is example 1. It says, have harsher penalties and ad campaigns increased seatbelt use among drivers and passengers? So they gave me a direction there, increased. Observations of commuter traffic failed to find evidence of a significant change compared with 3 years ago. So first it says, write these hypotheses in words. So this is weird, but this is something that we're not used to doing. We're going to try it for this particular problem. So the first hypothesis will be our null, which means there has been no change at all. So it says, have harsher penalties and ad campaigns increased seatbelt use? So the thing we want to increase is seatbelt use. So that means that the null would say seatbelt use is the same, right? That means there's been no change. And then the alternative would say seatbelt use has increased. So this is like the click it or ticket, Maryland signs you would see everywhere. Okay, in this context, what are type 1 and type 2 errors? So the first thing we want to talk about are those definitions that we had for what happens when we make a type 1 error. So if you remember, when we make a type 1 error, that's like we rejected the null, right? We found something had changed. So, we made a mistake. Remember, this is an error. So we found something had changed, but oops, it actually didn't. So in this case, we claim that seatbelt use has increased, but it stayed the same. So there has been no increase. It's just no change at all. So in type 2 error, and then I'm just going to talk about the consequences of these for just a second when I'm done with the example. But in type 2 error, we claim, right? So remember, let's talk about this first. Let's repeat the definition from our notes. Type 1 said, reject the null, but oops, the null was actually true. Type 2 says we fail to reject the null, so we cannot show a change. But, in fact, a change really did happen, right? We actually know that the null was false. So here, we claim that seatbelt use is the same. Let's make sure we use the same language here as the first one. But it actually increased, right? So it did go up. Okay, so just like to clarify, sometimes we talk about the consequences of making an error, right? So in this case, I just want to clarify what the consequences are. If we claim that seatbelt use increased, but it actually just stayed the same, then what we're claiming here is that there was a change when there wasn't. So remember now, click it or ticket, we spent a whole lot of money on this ad campaign. So we're going to continue to spend money when in fact this particular campaign isn't making a difference. Okay, type 2, we claim it is the same, but it actually increased. So we spent a whole lot of money on these signs and they did work. But because we made a mistake and we claimed that they didn't, right? We might stop this ad campaign that's actually working and making people safer drivers. So each one of these errors, whether it's type 1 or type 2, comes, remember, after we've concluded the test. We make this assumption of error made, and we can only choose one or the other. So in example 3, which is the follow-up video, I'm actually going to run the hypothesis test, and then we're going to follow up with type 1 or 2 error based on the conclusion. So it might be of benefit actually to watch the video for example 3 and then go back and do the example that I'm not going to cover, which is example 2, the follow-up to this one. All right, I'll see you on the next video.